and you're going to have to go start building a new tunnel. Hey everybody, welcome to today's podcast episode. You've tuned in and turned on the Jeff Heilman Project. How's it going, Jeff?
Because I'm a piece of work.
You're definitely a project.
Anything half done looks like a disaster. And since I'm 50 and I'm going to live to 100, par for the course.
How has your week been?
I don't even know. What week is it? Second week
November.
of May. Yeah.
What was that from? Old School?
I think it was Old School and Norm Macdonald's. Yeah. They were like,
they're by the pool.
What time is it? October.
October.
Yeah. Last week was pretty good. Booked my trip to Ireland, so I'll be flying on Aer Lingus.
Yes.
All the way nonstop to Dublin.
And
then I get to take a train to Cork, County Cork. I guess they don't say Cork County like they wouldn't say Santa Clara County. They would say County Santa Clara.
Okay.
So it's County Cork and then the city of Cork. So Cork, County Cork.
Cork, County Cork.
Ireland.
Well, I gave you a challenge, and I said your challenge is to bring me back a sheep.
Oh, I have to bring a sheep or
so
something.
We're going to see what that looks like.
Something sheepy.
Sheep.
Yes.
I want a sheep from Ireland.
Yes. So if anybody knows of something sheepy. My ancestors are actually from Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales. And so this will be going back to the mother country.
I wonder because
the kids have no Scottish in them from their 23andMe, by the way.
Because of where we live, anybody who's watching, listening, we live in the Bay Area. We live in Silicon Valley, and it is an extremely diverse location.
It is the only top 10 city by
that has no
population,
no particular
that has
minority.
No ethnic majority.
Yeah, majority. I wouldn't say no minority. Please excuse me. It's got
they have minorities, but they don't have a majority.
In other words, in a class growing up of 20 at the time, we had
everywhere. I had Pacific Islander, Cambodia, Lithuania,
Vietnamese,
Italy,
African,
Vietnamese, North and South America, all folks from Ecuador, Dominican
That's what
Republic.
I wonder is like when you go to Ireland,
it's cool.
Are the people going to look like you?
I would imagine that on the diversity spectrum of the universe, Ireland is on one of the planets that's farthest from its center. Just because everybody from Ireland, I think. I mean, I know people that live there who are people of color and people from Asia, people of Indian descent.
Like when we went to France, there were actually quite a few Africans because of being proximity from South Africa.
Would that be African Parisian?
I guess.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know what a French person looks like.
Yeah.
But it seems stereotypical, or at least it seems genetically that you kind of know what Scottish person would have red hair.
Going to be pale and have red hair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, when you go there, are you going to be like, oh, hey, we could be related?
But there's I've seen a lot of Irish people too that have black hair, like jet black hair and blue eyes.
Yeah.
And pale skin, like Anya,
Yeah.
Like that's what I think of most people from Ireland look like is either, a leprechaun or Anya.
If you're Irish, chime in on the comments below. Yeah. Send us your photo.
Love to hear of the diversity, equity, and inclusion group across Irish borders of the nation state of its own island. I think that's I'm super excited to go to Ireland. I've been to London a couple of times. I've been to Manchester, which is not London. Very different. I've never been to Liverpool. I would like to go to Liverpool and see like home of the Beatles and stuff. I've been to Oslo.
Where's Abbey Road? Is that Liverpool?
Abbey Road's in London.
Okay.
For God's sakes, I hope it is. I think it is. Yeah, I think it's right in city center with like a view of the Eye.
Oh right.
The Ferris wheel.
Yeah,
It's within like visual distance of the Ferris wheel. I'm pretty sure Abbey Road is. And I've been
when you went to Norway,
Amsterdam,
were there a lot
Norway,
of blonde?
Brussels.
Were there a lot of Norwegian
Everybody
looking?
was blonde, tan, and blue-eyed.
Really?
Every single person there. Yeah, they all look the same. It was actually really tough to tell them apart. It was almost like when you see another homogenous.
Like, hello, you.
Hello, you. Yeah, you.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, beautiful people, beautiful language, beautiful art, beautiful food. They are self-sufficient for petroleum, so they have policies passed which really help boost the electric grid. I had never seen. Now this is 5 years ago. I'd never seen so many Teslas in my entire life. There was just one after another because they give huge tax breaks to where, here we'd pay $120,000 for a Tesla plus 50 grand in tax on the money we made to make it. So a Tesla net would cost us 170. A Tesla over there is like 70.
Well, when I went to Fiji, there were Priuses all over the place because of the cost of gasoline
cost of fuel. That makes sense.
Onto the island.
Yeah,
So,
and they have to ship everything in just like Hawaii does.
Every cab was like a Prius.
So sheep.
Sheep. I need a sheep.
Write it down on my list. She's looking for sheep.
Bring me home a sheep.
Sheep things.
I'm going to let you figure out how to bring me home a sheep, but that is my request.
I will see what I can do. I'm not going to be there very long.
It's today's topic of conversation. We're going to, Andrew has brought up that we have previously talked about seasons. We're shifting into seasons now where it's May. We're looking at whenever this podcast actually broadcasts, we're looking towards summer, towards June. And the reason why I wanted to talk about seasons was I really wanted to develop this conversation that we've been having about the season of stacking that you're in. And I'll tell you where we're coming, I'll tell the listeners where we're coming from. The analogy was presented about dominoes and how when you stack dominoes, depending on how long you want the train to go once you tip them over, will determine how long you take to set up, how far of a distance it grabs.
What was the analogy that you used today?
Today was ants in the tunnel.
Ants, yeah, building a tunnel.
We've had like 3 analogies going. But the one that I really
like the ants.
The 2 maybe that we can talk about and expand. The reason why originally we were talking about dominoes and stacking them is that depending on how long of a generation or how long of income coming in you expect to see, then that kind of determines the length of the dominoes that you're stacking and how long you actually take to put up your dominoes. And then if you have a quick, like if you've accidentally knocked them over, in the case of, somebody comes along and knocks them over for you, you have no control, the economy tanks, the company goes out of business, whatever, then you have to start setting them all back up again. And so that's a season. But there's a season of watching them fall, there's a season of setting them up, and then there's a third season of going and gathering the pieces and then going and hunting and gathering to get them to set them up. So that's 3 seasons to talk about that we could expand on.
Yeah.
Today's analogy we were talking about was looking at an ant farm.
Yeah. The Bible tells us, observe the ants.
Observe the ant.
They're working their butt off, and then they take a break.
And then the season, are we in a season where we're digging? See, the reason why we talked about this, guys, is that the Jeff Heilman here, of the Jeff Heilman Project, seems to have 3 modes: on, off, and like Rodin the thinker. And so he was, so what we were talking about is
on, off, and mostly off.
On, off, and thinking. And so the thinking was the actual building the tunnel and how it takes time, and it takes a long time, but you're building the tunnel and you're going somewhere. But once he's got that tunnel built, once he's got that system built, it's like you can run through that tunnel and go on.
That's so true. That's so true.
But,
I mean, Perfigo was a perfect example of that. I'd never used Salesforce.com before.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of months. But I came up with a header that I could put in the subject field. Anybody that uses Salesforce or another CRM or even an Excel sheet, what would happen if you could give a gravity score to how valuable the next phone call was, and then using that algorithm, insert a header into every single one of thousands of next actions across tasks, and then sort by that gravity score. You would tend to do things that were weightier, more valuable to the business sooner in the day when your energy was higher, with less effort for things that were easier to accomplish that accomplished more with more energy earlier in the day. And it just, I mean, it was like a Gatling gun. It was definitely automated. And I don't even know how I came up with it. It was just pushing and driving and forcing, by force of will, my mind to try to get the best possible results. And it ended up getting to the point. Anybody that makes inside sales, to give you an idea, I was making on average about 40 calls a day, but that's like 40, that's an average. So some days were 60 or 80. Some days were 15 or 20 because I'd have a lot of meetings. But effectively, I made 10,800 calls in a day, or in a year. Sorry, in 10 months. It was actually in 10 months.
That's still a lot.
So it's about 1,000 calls a month, average of 250 or so. Just right at 250 a week. Divided by 5 is 50 a week.
And that was possible because, like in the ant analogy, you took time to establish a tunnel.
Yeah, and there's a Darren Hardy video. You can watch it for free. I don't know if I can find the link to send it to Andrew, but Darren Hardy talks about a Sunday night planning system where he gets this interview with a billionaire who remains nameless, said, I want you to interview me and pull the best nuggets out for my family for posterity. You can publish it as long as you don't reveal my identity, and as long as you produce content for my family to help as part of his succession plan. And there's 3 aspects of it. By the way, I have painted fingernails today because I have a 6-year-old little girl. She needed to make a few extra bucks.
And for those of you who are listening and not watching us on YouTube, Jeff Heilman is talking about the fact that his fingernails are pale pink.
Pale pink today.
And she asked you for your number. What is your number?
Oh, as soon as she was done, she said, Dad, have you thought of a number yet? Which I thought was...
because she wanted to get paid. She said, last time you paid me...
Have you thought of a number yet?
Last time you paid me...
Last time you paid me $5. I paid her $2. Yeah. And this time I paid her $3 plus $1 tip. So we've set a new precedent for the highest amount of money
Mr. Hardy
ever paid.
says on Sundays.
So Darren Hardy says, I'm sitting down with this billionaire, and his number one rule, there were 3 rules that he reveals for free, and then I think you can pay and you can get the other rules. But the first rule he said that the guy gave him was, do once so you never have to do again. Build systems is what he was saying. Build automated systems to say, this is your standard operating procedure for doing things. And I was thinking about it through the weekend, and I learn by talking. I learn by working things out and mulling over twists of phrases and lengths of words.
That's part of building your tunnel.
It is. It's part of building my tunnel for a thing. So I've got 3 circles of friends. Kind of my inner circle of friends is about 70, 75 people. And these would be people that I text or talk to, every week or every couple of weeks. Then I have another circle outside of that that's about 250 people. And I probably talk to them once a quarter, 2, 3, 4 times a year. And then if I go back and look, and I've done this before, where I go back and count the number of people that I've had a single text message with. So let's say Jessica would count as 1, and my Uber driver would count as 1, and a group text with 30 people on it would count as 1, even though we might have had multiple texts. That was about 900. Like in a year, I text between 800 and 900 people. So one of the smaller groups of friends that I've got, I'll test this material out, and I'll talk with them, and I'll see, in layman's terms, if I can get it across with brevity. And I thought about this whole concept of standard operating procedure, which I'm working on for work. We're working on for our businesses. And now we're starting to apply them in other areas too, like cleaning the car. I've got a standard operating procedure for cleaning the car.
Well, we've talked on the podcast at length about checklist manifesto.
Manifesto we talked about.
And all of that stuff.
But the thought this week was that your standard operating procedure for your day is like your sheet music for the symphony of your life that you are not just conducting or having other people participate in and conduct, but you're actually composing it. You're composing the actual sheet music that you're using for your life. And so I used the example with a friend of mine that if you're busking, which for those of you, so you don't have to go to Google, busking just means performing on the street for tips, typically. And it's, people can do well with it. There's a band in New Orleans that started out busking, and now they're touring the world because they got really, really, really good from busking all day, every day. Tuba Sirius or something. We'll get the name of that in the link too. That their stuff's worth watching, but they're fantastic. But if you're busking in the streets of Dublin and you're trying to make a few bucks to stay in a homeless shelter or to make enough money to eat, not only do you not need sheet music, you don't even need to be able to read music. It's just you're just one guy. You're just one gal busking. There's nobody accompanying you. You don't have to stay on the beat, per se. If you play the music and sing relatively okay, you'll make 50 or 100 bucks a day, and you can survive just off of busking 6 or 8 hours a day if you're good. But a friend of mine last week went to go see Johann Strauss II's The Blue Danube. And it's got 4 violins, 4 French horns in F, tubas, and on and on and on. Clarinets, violas, cellos. It's a whole symphony. And how in the world, if you've ever heard a symphony where they're warming up and they're tuning their instruments, it's horrible. It's absolutely atrocious. And that's what you would have if you didn't have sheet music. Because you could probably kind of by ear try to keep the beat. But if you didn't have sheet music and everybody knew every single note they needed to play and you'd had practice and rhythm, if you didn't have sheet music, you'd have no chance of actually being able to perform at that level. And so the whole concept of a standard operating procedure, it's like, do you need a standard operating procedure because your life is complicated? Or can you actually scale up to a more complicated way of living because you have this tool first? And my premise is you have the tool before you have the capacity to grow. So the tool enables us to grow at a higher level.
Well, I think that's the tunnel, by the way, analogy of SOP. The ant farm, I'm not sure I'm sure I haven't done enough research, guys, so you're going to have to bear with me. And if you're an entomologist, then I'm sorry. I apologize.
Is that the right term?
Yeah, entomology.
Entomologist is an ant studier?
Well, insects.
Oh, insects.
There's a queen, and we know that all the other ants serve the queen.
That much I know. Talk about the queen. I know.
But whatever, I don't care. That's not the point. The point is, I'm assuming that the ants that dig the tunnels would be probably considered like would be a larger ant than the ants that use the tunnels because of the muscle. Because I just would assume that the ones that use the ones that use the tunnel are not going to be as strong as the ones that are building the tunnel. And I would go so far as to say if you're a general, or if you feel as if you are that there are going to be 2 types. There's going to be generals who need standard operating procedures, and there's going to be travelers that use the tunnels that the generals forge. And so when we were talking about this ant farm analogy, we were also talking about the fact that sometimes, just like if somebody prematurely knocks over your dominoes, there might be unforeseen circumstances that close the tunnel, block the tunnel, and then you're going to have to come out for air, and you're going to have to go start building a new tunnel. And that has happened in business for you more than one time.
Yeah.
And so then you're back to, like, I remember one case point was it took about a year for you to go through getting things done. But then once you went through that year of getting things done, now you're on Mike Williams' podcast. He's on ours. Now you've got all these. I actually got fired
that week because I took the week off without telling anybody. Yeah. Just kind of disappeared and stayed working from home because I saw that I had a new way to produce a system.
Yeah.
But it was like, I didn't even care. I didn't want that job anyway. I knew if I put a system together, I could get a better job. And I'm not recommending that. Do not try that at home, kids. Like, if you have a job, you should be grateful for it. I have a job. I'm grateful for it. I have a business. I'm grateful for that. So it's not about not being grateful for what you have.
It's no mystery to me how you came out of.
If you guys haven't figured it out yet, I'm crazy. Like, I don't know why I think the way that I do. I don't know why I have such a hard time keeping jobs. It's no mystery
to me. Well, I do. This is what we're covering right now. There's no mystery to me why you were left from your last position, because your last position forced you into creating a bad ass tunnel.
Yeah, that's true.
And then soon as you got that tunnel moving, they're like, thanks for building the tunnel. Have a nice life.
Yeah.
See ya. The travelers are going to come and use your tunnel, because the general's job is done. The tunnel's been built.
Yeah, that's
and now you got to go off into your own tunnel. And now this next tunnel that you're in, which is making the transition from working for someone else to going full time as an entrepreneur. This tunnel is going to be your own tunnel, and you get to decide when this tunnel stops and when this tunnel or this tunnel is going to keep going in the direction that you want it to go in. But it's taking longer than you might have wanted, because everybody would like to be able to take a break from being the general. I think we have more than once, and being able to not necessarily dig the tunnel, be the only tunnel digger. But I think what we found is that for the season that we're in right now, it's heavy work. It's heavy work and digging. It's a lot of heavy digging.
A lot of heavy digging.
Right now. But my hope, and what we've seen from the multimillionaires and the billionaires that you've met, is there does come an age and a time when you get to actually meet up with other generals and dig together.
I have a friend of mine who may or may not appear on this podcast, but he's CEO of a multi-billion-dollar valued company, and he was talking to me a couple of weeks ago about a deal that he's working on at a very well-known company, a software company. Anybody in the Valley would know this company, and I won't mention the name of it, but it's a very high-profile software company. And he was talking about, this one's probably going to be his last run, right? And he's working on a deal that's inside this company, and they're getting blockage above. And one of his best friends, who I know and have spent time with at some of the events that we've done together with my contact, he just became the boss's boss, or the boss's boss's boss, of the guy that they have a problem with in the organization. And all of a sudden, there's no more problem in that organization.
Like in,
we're going to get their deal done, and it's like,
what is it, Mickey Blue Eyes, when he's not?
Forget
all of a
about
sudden
it.
He's not having any problem with deliveries.
Yeah, he's not having problems. Like, all of a sudden, the problems, the union problems, seem to be handled at the shooting location for The Godfather. Right?
Yeah.
They just happen to go away. So,
and
it's interesting to see
two.
Once you get that tunnel built, the whole purpose for the tunnel, and this is kind of, I don't mean to keep coming back to Elon Musk, but I think he's got a great idea. Build tunnels underground in Los Angeles for commuting.
Why not?
And then once the tunnels are built, they're done, and there's no resistance, and there's no traffic, and you can go 50 or 60 miles an hour from point to point under the ground, and then back up onto the land and, navigate around. What an amazing way. And so much safer than flying cars, right?
Yeah.
You can build tunnels where they don't collapse. Look at the Channel. Channel's been around for 40 years, and they've never had a collapse as far as I know. God help me. I hope they haven't. Don't mean to be disrespectful, but I need to double check my Wikipedia on that. But I don't think the Channel's ever had any trouble or collapse, because they know how to build tunnels so that they're safe. Once that tunnel's built, it's a pain to get it done. But once you get it done, it's really fast.
And so that's for this. To wrap up this episode, I would just like to encourage anyone who's listening to consider the season you're in. Consider the season you're in, and just hopefully get the opportunity to relax and recognize that you're building something for permanence, and is something that can be used again and again, and that it's just going to take. It might just take time, and that's.
Chances are, if it's worth doing, it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
For example, if you just look at the tunnel of us having humans in our lives, Andrew is
going to be 18.
Going to be 18 in a couple of weeks, and is the producer for this podcast. He's one of my best friends. Jeffrey, Joseph, Matto, Andrew, Ashi, Teddy, Ness are all great friends, but it took us 20 years to hatch them, and then it's like taking another 30 years.
It's going to take 12 more years for them all to be adults.
Yeah,
in
for them to be
years, we're going to have
in
all
12
adults.
years, 28 plus 12 is 40 years.
I know.
It'll take 40 years to get them to quote unquote adulthood, and the way we look at it, we're basically on the hook until they're 30. So it's more like 50, 52 years.
Yeah.
To get this thing like fully baked. So if you're building a tunnel, it might take a while, but once you get it built, man, it is something else.
Easy going.
Thanks for being with us, everybody, on the Jeff Heilman Show.
Have an awesome rest of your day, and thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, liking, subscribing, sharing, all that.
Ciao.
Bye.